Welcome back, pod people, to Cinema d'Amore. I'm your host, Justin Morgan. I'm here with
Chuck.
And we are continuing our theme of connectivity forever and ever and ever. This film, Licorice Pizza, is going to connect to last week's film, Good Time. The primary reason that we're going to discuss the film is just to discuss the fucking film, but Charles also has to guess, and I don't know if he's going to be able to figure this one out. I think it's going to be a first guess. Do you just want to go for it right now?
I can go for it right now.
Go for it.
I got two off the top of my head. My first one was inappropriate relationship between an adult and a teenager.
Nope.
Benny Safdie.
It's Benny Safdie.
All right. I was like, those are the two biggest ones I can think of.
Yeah, definitely inappropriate relationship is the premise of this movie, I guess.
It's the premise of the entire film. I mean, it's from literally the very opening scene when it's like, I'm 25, how old are you? 15. Want to go on a date? It's like, all right, we're just right off the bat. Like,
there's some like even B inappropriate relationships too.
Yeah, you get the weirder version of like the William Holden character named Jack Holden that's very clearly in his 60s trying to get with her when she's 25. So yeah, goes in different directions there. This kid does a lot for being 15 years old. Apparently in the 70s, a 15-year-old could just be the owner of his own business. Multiple businesses.
I think it parallels our movie that we watched a couple months ago, Punch Drunk Love, where it's just like you got the adult version with Adam Sandler that is not very successful at as being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, that very much feels like just coming up with those random, when you see Adam Sandler's business of like plungers with stuff in the handles, like goofy novelty type stuff. It's very much a similar character, but also does tie in very well with Cooper Hoffman, his father, who's the mattress man. And part of this movie is he becomes like the first waterbed salesman in California or something like that, a door-to-door waterbed salesman. So in a way, he is also a mattress man.
I do think the kid's a good actor, but he creeps me out every once in a while when he channels his dad, when he channels Philip Seymour Hoffman. It's creepy.
He definitely has a lot of his dad, and also another Paul Thomas Anderson actor, Paul Dano. He reminds me of Paul Dano a lot too.
That's his mom.
Yeah, I think all the actors are good. It's a lot of first-time actors, and he has Alana Haim, her entire family. It plays her family in this film, so they're all non-actors, the entire family there.
You gotta love a movie when the non-actors' names are the character names.
Or just the character names. They just don't even...
That's usually how you can tell the non-actors. They just keep their own names.
Yeah. Was it too hard for them to like memorize which name was their name? They're like, just leave the names the same. It's fine.
Your character's name is Chuck Jackson. You're part of the Jackson family.
Yeah. I did like that because at first they gave her name. I was like, oh, she has the same name as her character. And then they're like, Danielle. And I'm like, oh, that's what her name is in real life. They're just like rattling off. I'm like, okay, they all have their same names.
And we do have to point out, I'm going to say every, but it's probably just most. Paul Thomas Anderson has done every music video for them, I'm pretty sure.
Probably.
I think it's like the only artist that he really does music videos with. And then the score is Johnny Greenwood.
Yeah.
I don't really listen to Haim, but it would be interesting to have them do the score for this movie too. Like that was an opera, but he didn't want to ruin the relationship with Greenwood, I guess.
Yeah, there's not even like a super heavy score in this. It's more just songs from the 70s playing through most of this movie. It's not like as big of a score as something like The Master or There Will Be Blood or something like that.
It's not even tidbits. It's like we're playing the whole David Bowie song. We're playing all of this Doors song. We're doing the whole goddamn 5-minute song.
I did enjoy this movie. I thought there's more than slight parallels with things like Punch Drunk Love, and it feels like all of his movies take place in the same universe. They're all in that same... He loves California in the 60s and 70s. He's set, so many of his movies. I mean, most of his movies are in California in general. Is there a single one? Maybe Phantom Thread, I guess, is the only one that's not California in the... Almost all of his other films are all out there. Boogie Nights, Punch
Maybe
Drunk
The
Love.
Master.
Master's California.
Well, not when they're on the international waters.
Parts of it, but most of it's in California.
Yeah, I can't think of the whole movie.
Like I said, I think Phantom Thread might be the only one that I guess isn't, but everything else is California. And
is that in France? Supposed to be?
I think France
like a
was
European
the main location.
Okay.
He knows what he likes. That's another, like, him and Tarantino, they do just have, like, I guess I would say almost bordering on obsession, but probably just because that's what they grew up watching is California in the 70s. Like, they grew up watching all of those
Oh, I thought
films
you were
from,
talking
like,
about obsessions in general, and you were going to say Paul
well,
Thomas Anderson's Obsessions California and Tarantino's His Feet. And when you
yeah,
really get into those obsessions,
he gets
they
in
find
there.
their way into all your movies.
Yeah.
Well, if you think about Phantom Thread, it brings up that point of the costumer who sews secret things into his clothing, which is kind of what a director does when they've made so many movies. They kind of do little Easter eggs for their own stuff.
Yeah.
Dude, this is what I do, and then I'm going to continue to do it. Yeah, this was originally called Soggy Bottom, which probably would have been a more fitting name. But he went with Licorice Pizza, which was a huge record store around California. So when you watch this movie and it's just called Licorice Pizza, he didn't just fucking just choose words and say, hey, that's the title of my movie. It's a real place. I don't think it's featured in the movie at all.
I don't think so.
Which,
I mean,
more power to him.
In the film, like we said, the main character, Gary, he falls in love with waterbeds after he tries one out. That's what he originally calls his waterbed business, is Soggy Bottoms, which he has to be told, it's like, sounds like someone shit their pants. He's like, yeah. And he's like, well, no one wants to think about shitting their pants in bed. Like, that's a terrible name. You need to change it.
He's a kid. He's adolescent. He's like, oh, I thought it was funny. It's like, yeah, well, it's going to hinder your business.
I could see that being like the actual conversation someone had with Paul Thomas Anderson when he said, that's the name of my film. And someone being like, doesn't that make you think of, like, shitting your pants? Like, no one wants to think about that when they're going to the movies.
Not extremely plot heavy, more character heavy, character driven, I guess I should say. It is kind of character heavy too, though. There's a lot of characters in it.
It's definitely, like, I would say, like, more episodic. Like, there's sections that are like, this is the part where they're selling waterbeds. Then this is the part where they're doing this. Like, yeah, almost none of the side characters ever come back. They're in their own sections. Like, you get the opening when he's doing his child acting thing more than anything else, and that's when you get the kid from Righteous Gemstones, Skylar Gisondo, who's like, I don't know, he is funny in this movie as Lance. Like, he seems like he seems vaguely creepy. Like, he's just immediately like, Gary, what's with the lady friend, Gary?
It's funny in general that they're kid actors, and it seems to be pretty heavy in whatever school that they're at is a school with a lot of children actors that people are trying to push their kids into things.
Yeah.
And because everyone just talks about the shit that they're in, which is like why Alana's not impressed by like his acting shit at first. Well, he's just doing his whole resume to her. It is funny when you do get to that Lance character because he's like the big shot child actor who's got like one slightly better job than the main character. So he's like very egotistical.
I'm really moving up in the world compared to these guys.
He is fucking funny. And that section of the movie where she likes him, so she starts dating him, brings him to family dinner, and they're
reveals he's an atheist.
Yeah, he's like, I can't do that. I'm an atheist. And Dad just looks at her like, are you fucking kidding me? And that's pretty much like the last that you see him. I don't think you ever see him again once he leaves.
What does your dick look like? Like a normal penis? Is it circumcised? Yeah. Then you're fucking Jewish.
Yeah, he's obsessed with that later because, like, even when Bradley Cooper's character shows up and he's gonna force something in his dick hole,
he's like, you see, whatever he says, he's like, you're making promises. I'm gonna shove that promise right up your dick hole. How big's your dick hole? Is it pretty big? You think that would hurt if I shoved it up there?
Yeah, and then you got his assistant that's just like painfully hurt by having to listen to that. The biggest cameo in this is Leonardo DiCaprio's father.
Yeah.
He plays the waterbed. Yeah. So apparently he was trying to get Leonardo DiCaprio in this movie, I believe, as the Bradley Cooper character. Somehow snagged his dad, like only has his dad. They are working together though on some untitled project that I believe is supposed to come out this year. I mean, he's not heavy effects wise.
You think it was his dad that went back and was like, Leo, you gotta work with this guy, man.
Yeah.
You gotta do it, man. Come on. I had to do this one for you. You gotta work with this guy.
Yeah, I can't keep distracting him any longer. You're gonna have to do this.
It seems like Gary gets into the waterbed business. I think he definitely knows his child acting days are starting to already get behind him when he goes to that reading for like the Sears catalog or
Mhm.
commercial or something. It's like it's funny because you see all those other like very small kids that are like very
Oh yeah, when
clearly
they're
in
on the
like
hallway.
they're like 10 years old, and he's way too old to be doing this thing anymore. And like even
Yeah.
when they open the door and Maya Rudolph's like, "Oh my God, Gary, you're huge." And just like he's like, yeah, I have grown up a little bit. And he like does that line reading and stuff, and they're like, everyone's like looking like, oh, this is awkward. This is a commercial for like 10-year-olds, and he's way too old
Mhm.
to be still trying to do this kind of thing. But he's like lost that. Everyone looks at him because he's lost that cute kid charm.
Mhm.
He's in the teenage phase when he's got like acne, and it's like, he's not a cute kid anymore. We can't put him in stuff. He's dead to us basically.
Yeah, and they do what they do, like have him line read for something else, and they're like just to like appease him. They're like,
Yeah, make him like
no, it's
feel
yeah,
good.
great as always.
But he like trips up over his words, which he does multiple times in the movie.
A lot of this, it kind of reminds me of the comedy or the setups that are in Wes Anderson films, like
Yeah.
the walking and talking, like when they're going into the expo with the waterbed, start advertising it, and the kid's like his buddy, I know it can help sell beds. He's like, I could just give them weed to help sell the beds. He's like, that's a great idea.
He's like, or LSD. I could get LSD. No, man, stick with the grass.
Yeah, he's like, now go get on that. Like that's like the
Yeah.
perfect idea.
That scene, we get another great cameo of John C. Reilly as I am the real Herman Munster, but you guys got to settle down.
That is a great cameo because he doesn't interact with any of the main
Yeah,
characters.
he's just in the background.
You wouldn't recognize him if you saw him. It is
It's
literally
just his voice.
a voice.
Yeah, it's
just
the
his
voice that's because like even when I was watching it and I saw a guy dressed like he's very clearly obviously doing like he's got Frankenstein makeup on, and yeah, until he started talking and I was like, oh, it's John C. Reilly, and yeah, it's just there for a second, like.
And then you have that beautiful scene where he's in the middle of his discussion and the police just fuck him up and take him away because they've mistaked him for a murderer. They're just like very abusive to
It
him.
does make me laugh too because it also goes back to Maya Rudolph when she's like, "You're huge," and when those guys are like, "Yeah, have fun in Attica, big boy," like everybody's like mocking him vaguely for being like slightly overweight. Like they're like, "Yeah, big boy, you're going down."
And they bring that like crazy guy out to be like, that's the wrong guy.
That's not the guy.
They just like unhandcuff him and that's it. They don't
Yeah.
tell him to leave or anything.
There's great moments like that. Your Wes Anderson thing. There's another moment that I felt like reminded me even more of a Wes Anderson part, which was when she comes home after hanging out with Gary late at night and the dad's playing basketball in the driveway or something, and they're so far apart and they're just yelling at each other from across the driveway, and they're like, "What? I told you I was with Lisa. Who? You know Lisa. What?
I don't know, Lisa.
Who's Lisa? I told you, Dad." Like it's just they're just yelling at each other, but nothing's getting resolved. That also made me think of a good like Wes Anderson, like two people just like across a field from each other, yelling back and forth, then getting confused at each other.
Or like the motorcycle scene where they're gonna jump the flames.
Yeah,
where he's directing
Tom Waits is.
Yeah, Tom Waits is like the director, and he is a director, I'm assuming, but
yeah,
but he's not like actually directing anything. Like there's no cameras or anything, but it just feels like he's over the top, more over the top than anyone else. And it's that shot of like the dolly shot where he's just like, here's the flame. Oh, we need bigger flames.
Yeah. When he sets it up, when he's like, I need 3 wingback chairs, a bottle of Everclear, like all this type of stuff, and meet me
all
meet
the
me
grease
on the
in the back. Yeah.
Yeah, 8 pounds of grease. Meet me on the 8th hole. Yeah, he's another character where it's like, I don't know, some people in this movie are like, they are exact, like they use their actual names, like John Peters, and then you have Jack Holden is supposed to be William Holden, so he does like a weird. This movie makes me think of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood a lot because it has those kind of. It's a blend of real people, and some people are like just made up versions of other characters or just like composites of people that existed in that time. And it's like Tom Waits' character feels like maybe he's a reference to someone like Sam Peckinpah or something like that, like for just being like a psychotic guy that's just like, yeah, man, let's have him jump a motorcycle over flames because it'll be cool or something like that. Like he's one that like I don't know that he was a direct reference to anyone in particular, but it feels like it's vaguely what they're going for is someone like that. He's a very Hunter S. Thompson type character as well.
Yeah.
I knew that was going to be the setup too. That was one of those jokes that I saw coming from like a mile away that like she's going to like fall off the motorcycle or something because he's hammered on martinis. Everyone there's drunk, and I was like she's definitely going to like fall off that motorcycle. But I the one thing I did think he was going to like violently die, like the motorcycle was going to explode or something and hit a tree or something on the at the end of that. So the fact that he got up and walked away.
Or like he wasn't even going to jump it, like he was just going to go straight into the grease.
Yeah,
the grease fire
just run right into it. Yeah, I did think that was going to happen. That it was going to be more of he was going to get messed up.
Yeah, we talked about it beforehand. One of the other small references too was the whole oil thing, where they talk about the gas prices, like there's a gas shortage, and I believe this is the time when, depending on what your plate was, evens and odds, you could only get gas on like certain days. Yeah, it's really funny because it's like his business is like basically going to fail because
his waterbeds.
Yeah, his waterbeds are made from vinyl, and she's like, vinyl's made from
his explanation too. Yeah, Gary, did you know there's an oil embargo? Yeah, I think I heard of that. And it's like, you know what the waterbeds are made of? Vinyl. You know what vinyl's made of? No, it's made of oil, Gary. Oh, I thought it was some type of magic material like rubber. Yeah, rubber's also made of oil, dumbass. It's like, oh.
Yeah, and he adapted the book Oil into There Will Be Blood, so
yeah, he ties it all back.
It's all tied together.
It's all there. It's all about
the PTA
that oil
universe.
It's all about the oil.
You know, when he's on his deathbed, they're gonna be like, "What was the point of all your movies?" He's gonna be like, "Oil." Yeah. It was all.
It's a great moment too when they load all that shit into that van and then it drives like 10 feet and it stops when they run out of gas. Like it barely makes it out of the parking lot. And it just stops and they're just like, "Oh, we're out of gas." They just stop and all get out and walk away.
Yeah. And then they go to whatever. What's the real guy's name?
John
Say
Peters.
It again. Yeah, John Peters' house, played by Bradley Cooper, which
he was in the trailer. Cameo.
He's in the trailer like busting car windows and stuff for like I don't know, like a movie or an advertisement or something like that doesn't make it into this movie.
It's not there, yeah.
But it would be great if he was just straight up a total surprise, like you did not know that he was in the movie.
Yeah, because he's like one of the most memorable cameo characters because he's so weird in general. Like when he's like, you know who my wife is, or my girlfriend, Barbara Streisand, and like that's what he like keeps tripping up over his words because he's like so nervous. He's like Barbara Streisand. He's like Streisand. Yeah, Streisand. He's like, oh my god, that's even worse.
Are you fucking with me?
Yeah, you fucking with me, man. Oh, let's just hope you never meet her. I love that reference. Like, let's just hope you never meet her.
It gets funny because it's like he's jacked because he threatened his brother. So he purposely floods his house.
Gary, I'm gonna kill you and your entire family. You got pets? You got a dog? No? You got a brother? Got a brother? I'll kill your brother in front of you, Gary, and make you watch if you fuck in my house.
And then, like, what's his name? His assistant that's, like, on the phone, but does that, like, weird twirl, like... I feel like Paul Thomas Anderson just, like, laughed at every, like, improv thing that was done and said, it's staying in the movie.
It's hilarious. Leave it. It's great.
But the whole sequence of them
flooding his house, seemingly, and then they have to pick him up because he's walking back up the hill towards his house, and he's by himself, and he's like, let me in, get me in there, back this thing up. We're going back to my house.
Yeah, you think that they're gonna be like, oh fuck, he's gonna find out. Then he's immediately like gets his gas can, which again he's like so over top where he just like destroys everything in his garage just to grab one gas can, take him to his car. He should like I broke down. They go to the gas station and he's so fucking scary. They're like, we're gonna run, right? We're gonna leave. They drive back up to smash his car window. Well, it's Gary's idea. I don't think no one else is in on this. And like, of course,
they run out of gas.
Runs out of gas again.
So they have to go backwards down the whole hill riding the brakes.
And they're like, trying to figure out which gas station's the closest. And then they get that moment again where they're gassing up the truck in the middle of the road, and Elena's sitting on the sidewalk, and he's there.
He's walking by, and he like throws a trash can through a store window while he's walking by.
Yeah, and then he just, like, you think he's gonna see her, and then these women walk by, and he's like, then he's trying to like flirt with them or something. Like, it's just so fucking insane. And yeah, again, it doesn't go the way you think it's gonna go, because it's just like it's another plot that kind of like drops off.
Yeah.
And then the last one, where like I would call it like the creepiest one, he overhears. I think it's John that Gary overhears about like the pinball machines becoming legal.
It's Benny Safdie, the mayor character.
It's him who says it. Okay,
because they pull him in, because it's like that's what keeps happening throughout this film is you keep getting these moments where she wants to stop hanging out with Gary and his friends. She keeps talking about like, is it creepy that I hang out with Gary and his 15-year-old friends? I think it's creepy. I think it's weird that I hang out with Gary and a bunch of 15-year-olds. But she keeps like bringing them back in every time for all these different things. Like, yeah, she volunteers for the councilman that's running for mayor because she knows someone that works for him. So she starts volunteering, and then cuts to them doing a commercial, and Gary and all of his friends are the film crew for the commercial.
She keeps attaching herself to other people, and she also is a lot like Gary, where she just keeps shifting from like position to position. Like, she keeps doing different jobs. She wants to feel important, but nothing's making her feel important. And yeah, she starts working on his campaign. You get this like weird subplot, which makes the movie like borderline horror film for me. There's this dude that's just lingering in the background where like he's gonna like fucking kill Ben Safdie. Like, it feels
like a reference to Taxi Driver, because they're all they're all in like the campaign office, and like this weird guy's just hanging out by the campaign office. That it's like, who's that creepy guy? They have that moment when he walks in, just like kind of stops, looks around, and then just turns around and leaves, and then stands across the street staring at the building.
And she's the only one that notices him, and I like how she tells the other guy like, "Hey, watch this guy, or go talk to this guy," and the guy's like, "I don't know."
I'll wait a little bit and see if he doesn't leave in a little while, and then I'll go talk to him.
She gets a phone call at the end of the night, one of the nights, and it's him like, "Hey, come meet me here for this drink." So she goes to this restaurant,
which that dude's sitting outside.
Yeah, the guy's there again. You're just like waiting for him to be killed or something.
Yeah, that this guy's gonna assassinate this guy.
Yeah, and then you get to like the plot point is that she was brought there essentially to look like his boyfriend's girlfriend or something, so that no one in the campaign would know that he was gay.
Yeah, which is like hinted at very early, and like, yeah, it makes sense later when he's having that interview and they keep going, yeah, but like, don't you have a girlfriend, or isn't there someone you'd want to be your wife? And he's like, oh, I'm just so busy trying to make LA as best as it can be and take care of my constituents. And they're like, yeah, but I mean, come on, you telling me you don't have any girl that you're with? And like they just like keep throwing those questions at him over and over again, and he keeps trying to deflect those away.
When she leaves to go to Gary's pinball arcade or whatever,
Pinball Palace.
Yeah, the opening of that, they cross paths, they miss each other, and he goes to the campaign office. And when she gets to the pinball place and they're like, oh no, he went to the campaign office, it's so dark and everything that I half expected him to get murdered at the end of this. Like, it was just
there's a lot of moments it feels like somebody would get murdered just like walking.
I'm like, Gary's just going to get murdered. Like, this is how it's going to end. He's just
someone's going to get hit by a car or something like that.
Yeah, that moment too, when he got in her car and just takes off, it literally feels like he's going
his pinball business is great too, because it's like another example of he wants to seem super important and fancy. Like, he gets that tailored suit from designer, and then he's there and he's smoking cigarettes to look
I'm
cool.
Also assuming it's from like his days when he was like more into the commercials and stuff, because everyone knows him, like every single person.
He knows like the guy at the restaurant. Yeah, everyone knows him. But I love when he's there and there's the one guy that keeps like bumping the pinball machine, like that's clearly way older than he is, and he's like, hey man, cool it. And the guy's like, hey, fuck off. And he's just like, and then he like walks up to like this kid that's like 8 years old. And he's like, hey, pal, what'd I tell you? Keep it down. Here, you're going to have to get out of here. And like he throws that kid out just because he like,
Yeah, he's
he
like,
needs to
I
feel.
paid. Get out of here.
He needs to feel important, and he keeps telling all the kids, and the kids dropping their bikes, and he's like, "Come on, guys, bikes to the left, bikes to the left. Quit leaving them here."
I mean, he must have some sort of money, or he works out some sort of plan that we never see.
I feel like
because
it's probably like I don't think he has money. I think it is more just like it's some sort of hustle, like he's conning people out of something or making some sort of deal.
Yeah, like he's got to be doing something with the waterbed guy to get all the waterbeds, but you don't really see if it is actually him that he's working through or not. Like you. Oh, and then I like to when he's like trying to advertise the waterbeds, so he goes to this guy that runs this Japanese restaurant.
Oh, that every time. Yeah, John Michael Higgins. Every time he's on, like from the first time you see him with his wife, and he's like, "You're not." I don't think you're ready for when he starts doing the very, very like offensive, like, "Oh Miyako, how you like menu read?" Like, and he's doing that very like offensive Japanese thing, which then she talks back to him in Japanese, and it's not till the second time.
Yeah, it's a different wife too.
It's
he's
a
like,
different
"This is
wife
my
the
new.
second
This
time.
is my new wife." Yeah,
yeah, which also feels like when Gary's like, "Oh Miyako," and it's like. It's very clearly not the same woman as the first time. He's like, "Oh, this is actually my new wife, Kyoki," or something like that.
Yeah, Kamiko, and
when
and
she
I
talks
do like
to
she
him.
speaks. Yeah, and then he's like, "What did she say?" He's like, "I don't know. I don't speak Japanese."
Yeah, that's very hard to say. I don't speak Japanese, and it's like he's seemingly been interpreting this whole time, but he doesn't speak it. He just speaks this very like insane American Japanese.
Yeah, the insane thing with the American with the Japanese accent, there's always somebody talking to his wife, whatever wife it is at the time, and then he goes to interpret it, but he just speaks in English, so it does like...
Yeah, he just puts it in the... I don't know how else to describe it, that Japanese
maybe it's Paul
accent.
Thomas Anderson letting us... Yeah, this is going to be absurd, is what Paul Thomas Anderson is trying to say.
Yeah.
Since the connection's Ben Safdie, what do you think about the range between the two Safdie performances that we just had back-to-back?
He is good. He's a good actor. He keeps popping up in more and more things. He did this.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, he's been in his own films. He was in Oppenheimer, and then I don't know if he's been in anything else. I can't think if there was anything else that he's been in or that he's going to be in. But I mean, obviously, people like working with him. He keeps popping up in all these like it's not just like he's popping up in these random movies. Popping up in a Paul Thomas Anderson movie and Christopher Nolan movies. Like he's popping up in all these very large directors' films.
It reminds me of Scorsese, like in the 80s and 90s, where he would be making these weird cameos in other directors' movies.
Yeah.
I feel like that's exactly what it is. Or like you've seen that in Encounters of the Third Kind with Truffaut. Like we're just going to give this director a huge part who
I don't know
is
why
not an actor.
Directors as cameos is like one of, I don't even want to say it's like the funniest thing, but it is great. David Cronenberg's another great example of he'll just randomly show up in the most, I mean, when he pops up in like Jason X or something like that, and you're like, what is David Cronenberg doing in this movie? Like, what are we doing here? Like, I don't know why, directors that cameo in movies are hilarious.
I feel like they're like, David, this is a terrible script, and he's like, I don't care. I don't care if it's the worst script in the world.
I want to be in a Friday the 13th movie somehow. Yeah, Benny Safdie is supposed to be in Happy Gilmore 2, so that's his next.
Well, that makes sense. His Adam Sandler connection.
He's hanging out with Adam Sandler now.
So
that'll be a good one. But yeah, he is good. It seems like that's another thing when you have like these directing duos. One of them, it almost feels like that was probably how they were as kids. He was probably the one that would be more wanting to be the actor in the movies that they made as kids, and his brother was probably the one that was always doing more of the directing. You get that with like the Duplass brothers. Like I think Mark's the one that's usually he's like popped up in a bunch of movies as just Mark, an actor I can't by even himself. Remember the
other one.
Jay.
Yeah, Jay's in like nothing.
So it's like, there's always the one guy that's like, I want to be an actor, but I guess I'll help direct as well.
Yeah, I think, is it Josh Safdie? He's
the other brother, yeah.
He's in some things, but he's like more seldom.
Not as much, yeah. So
he's more like the true cameo, like he's the Hitchcock. He's just a dude in the background.
Yeah, doesn't have speaking lines and an actual character name.
Yeah. The primary reason I picked this was, as far as I know, you haven't seen it yet. It was like one of the ones you didn't get to.
I just didn't get around to it.
This was a rewatch for me. It held up. It's still very funny. I think that it matches the humor that you like. So I was like, I think
And
that he's really
yeah,
going to like this one. Will everybody like it? I mean, I think if you like pretty much all Paul Thomas Anderson's movies, if you're
it
okay
fits
with
in.
like absurdist comedy, I mean, it's not
Yeah.
the craziest comedy, but or even like the aesthetic. Like, I don't know if it's the same school or some of the same areas of Los Angeles. The school makes me think of Halloween, and there's a moment where that driveway, when he pulls out and he leaves and she starts walking down the sidewalk, the hedge like reminds me again of Halloween. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, is this the exact same location and the same hedge? I wouldn't be surprised, because
Yeah. It
if
looks
there's one thing
similar.
we know about Paul Thomas Anderson, he makes highbrow movies, I would say, kind of more than not. He's the defender of all movies. He's like, there's a thing where he's talked about going to like a writing class at NYU, and they told, I think it was, maybe it wasn't, maybe it was UCLA because everything's California.
Yeah.
But he said that the writer was like, the teacher said something like derogatory about Terminator 2. Like, if you don't want to make Terminator 2, then get out of my class. And Paul Thomas Anderson was like, Terminator 2 is a great movie. What are you talking about? Like, maybe it's not the most highbrow movie of all time, but it's really well made. Yeah, I'm out. I can't do that. I'm sure there are other things that we didn't even touch in this, but like, yeah, it's kind of like a stream of consciousness type of movie. It follows Gary's kind of journey of trying to get to different places. And
Yeah.
then you do have the weird, what is going on with this relationship, because the relationship is creepy. Alana's character is pedophile, basically. The very beginning, he's being a smooth talker, talking to this older lady, and he's like, meet me for a drink. And she shows up. She also dates Lance for a light bit, who's like, you guess, is this around the same
Probably
age
15 or
as,
16, yeah.
yeah, if not even younger. Who knows? I don't say ignore it. Obviously, it's very there in your face. But I feel like it's a commentary of the time because, like you said, when you're with Jack Holden's character, he's like 40 years older than she
Yeah.
is. Age is a weird thing in this. And I don't think the movie ever says it's right. I think the movie's poking at how it isn't. Yeah, the way this movie ends, where they're running towards each other, they meet, they kiss, title card.
Yeah.
It ends like a romance movie, like they're going to have this long life together.
Well, it has that good moment even after they run into each other. I enjoy the moment where I think she's like finally accepted. I guess I do like Gary. Like, well, she keeps trying to replace Gary with like a different guy that's older. Like she thinks like, oh, this guy's more mature. But then they constantly keep letting her down pretty much and showing that like almost at any age these guys are still very immature and don't hold themselves responsible. Like you get the Jack Holden character who dumps her off a motorcycle and just drives away drunk and like pretty much just forgets her. And he keeps calling her by her character's name, and she's like, do you even remember my actual name? Like keeps calling her Rainbow. He's like, do you even remember my real name? Then you get the politician she's like, he's trying to stand for something. He has ideals and he's a good guy. But then she sees that, he's kind of like a coward that doesn't really care. All he really does care about is his own personal image. He doesn't care about his boyfriend. He's like, they'll never accept us, and it'll ruin my career if I'm seen with you. So you have to leave and, go away with her. You can't stay with me. She keeps trying to find someone more to match her, but they all keep constantly letting her down. And it's like kind of in the end, she's like, it's like, I guess I'll just go with Gary. Gary's at least honest about like that he is that way. He is the most overly confident person that she meets, but it doesn't feel like he ever lies to her or tries to deceive her. He is pretty flat out honest about like what he wants and what he's trying to do. He starts off within the first 10 minutes of the movie when he tells his brother, he's like, Gary, I met the person that's going to be my wife today. Or Greg, I met the girl that's going to be my wife today. Like that's the very beginning. And when they go at the very end, after they meet up and they go back to the pinball place, and he's like, I'd like to introduce everyone to Alana Valentine. And she's like, real nice, Gary, and like walks away from him. like she's like, he is still like that immature kid, but she's
But
like,
she
I
does get
guess.
jealous of when has his waterbed business and that other girl's there. Well, she's like supposed to be like, he's flirting with her and everything and showing
Yeah.
off all his waterbed business. But I think the other thing that he's doing is like his commentary on time. One of the funnier moments I think is also Leo's dad, where he's like, waterbeds are the future. Everybody's going to be sleeping on a waterbed. Flash forward to now, you could probably find one on eBay or something, I'm sure. Or there's probably some obscure place that will make them for you. But
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming waterbeds are still out there somewhere in some form. Like, I don't think they're completely gone, but yeah, they probably are like very much like custom to order.
mm-hmm. Well, a lot of great moments in this movie that we didn't necessarily go over, but yeah, I don't know how much time passes over this movie. I would also say that Gary's probably not legal by the end of this movie.
At most, it feels like maybe like a year, like maybe he's 15 at the beginning and he's 16 by the end or something. It's like a year or less, I would say.
He would definitely be 16 because when they ask him how old he is, he's like, I'm 15, but I'll be 16 next month.
Yeah. And he is driving a car by the time the movie ends. Because, like, at the beginning, he has to be driven around all the time, but he does get to that point towards the end when he's doing the pinball stuff where he, like, has his own car to drive away in.
And I kind of feel like he doesn't legally do that. He's just like, yeah, I know how to do it, and he just takes the keys and goes.
Yeah. That might not be his actual car. That might be his mom's car or something.
Yeah, possibly he did get his license, and we just missed all this part of the section because, I mean, there's not any shot that's, like, showing us a calendar or really letting us know how much time has passed.
Yeah.
I don't think, like, that ever happens. So, yeah. It's not an appropriate relationship. And I think that's the biggest criticism I've seen with it. I was like, of all the movies of that year, like, that was probably my favorite movie. My one friend Warren's like, but it's about a pedophile. You know, like, yeah, it's a weird take on it, but I'm not oblivious to it. You could definitely see it's happening to some degree. And I don't know if you could, like, I don't even know if I'd consider it grooming, but it's definitely a person that's making the wrong choices. They're very much the same character. I mean, I'm not saying it makes it right. It doesn't. They both kind of move along to the next best thing as quickly as they can, like trying to find their purpose.
Yeah.
They're all, I don't know, not making the greatest decisions. So it all kind of matches up and goes together. I think that pretty much wraps it up for me. I'm sure we could talk more about it. I enjoyed the movie. I still enjoyed the movie.
Yeah.
You can purchase it everywhere. It wasn't streaming anywhere. I took a trip to Paris, France, so I could watch it for free on Amazon. But me and Chuck were talking in the beginning. It was on Prime for free forever. I think it might be included in like the MGM subscription, but that's just another streaming service I don't have nor plan to get.
Add that to the list.
And it's another movie I would own, but I'm like, they only released it on Blu-ray, and I'm like, there's no fucking way that this movie isn't going to get a 4K release or come to Criterion or something. There's going to be a physical release, so like I've held off on it, and now it's been several years and still hasn't happened yet. So if anybody's listening out there and wants to release it, I'll buy it.
Get it somewhere.
We'll see you again 2 weeks. Chuck loved it. I loved it. And we'll see what movie he decides to connect to next. The ball is with Chuck. And thank you for listening.
We are Cinema d'Amore. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter to stay up to date with news and information on upcoming episodes. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, Pandora, Alexa, or iHeartRadio. It would be greatly appreciated if you subscribe to our podcast on your platform of choice. We also appreciate feedback, so rate us, review us, and let us know what you think. And above all else, thank you for listening.